How similar is your company to your competitors? Would your customers even know the difference? This is a Costco, and this is a Sam's Club. Outside of logos, you get a very similar experience at each. There are a lot of things that you should learn about your competitors, and two of the most important are your resource similarity and your market commonality. The more common or the more overlap you have between the two companies in both resources and market commonality, the more you have in common with your competitors, the more likely that your strategies are to be similar, and the stronger the rivalry between the two is likely to be. Market commonality considers the number of markets in which two companies overlap. Consider a mechanic shop in a small town with one other mechanic shop. Their market competition overlaps 100%. That competitor is a direct competitor or a rival targeting the same customers. Now consider that you are running a large chain of auto repair shops in 100 different cities. When you look at that single mechanic shop in a small town, you only overlap with that shop in one town. So while you compete with them in that location, overall, they're not a huge strategic concern. But another chain of shops with locations in half of the places where you operate is a much stronger competitor with much higher market commonality. Your rivalry is likely higher with the company with which you overlap more. However, there is an exception to this, where companies who overlap in more markets end up having a lower rivalry or a lower back and forth between them. Multi-market competition is when two firms overlap with each other in many different markets. And when they overlap and have very high multi-market competition, they tend to not attack each other as often because of the risk of retaliation. We can see this with a number of large companies. Think, for example, of Coke and Pepsi. They don't want to get into a price war with each other. They would both end up losing. So instead, they tend to hold back and the rivalry doesn't get as strong as it otherwise could. Now let's go back to the mechanic businesses. If a large company were to open a new location or run a promotion to draw customers away from the small company with a single location, any competitive response is likely to be minimal to the large company. However, if the large company were to attack another large company, they are more likely to see a strong competitive response. The risk of retaliation is much higher. In addition to market commonality, we also consider resource similarity when analyzing competitors. Resource similarity considers both tangible and intangible resources. For discussion on this, check out the link in the description where I talk a lot more about resources. Firms with similar resources are likely to have similar strengths and weaknesses, and therefore they're also likely to use similar strategies. To consider resource similarity, consider a dairy farmer with 5,000 cows and an established relationship with Walmart. The cows are a tangible resource, and the relationship with Walmart is intangible. Now consider a small farmer with 30 cows that sells milk to a local market. The resource similarity is low. But now compare that to another farmer with 4,000 cows and a relationship with Kroger. Resource similarity is high. The first big dairy likely has a stronger rivalry with the other large dairy than with the small one because resources have higher similarity. We can assess the strength of rivalry between two companies using this diagram. On the left, we consider market commonality. On the bottom, we consider resource similarity. The top right shows high overlap in both high market commonality and resource similarity, while the bottom left shows low overlap in both. We can use this diagram to compare market commonality and resource similarity between any company and any potential competitor. As an example here, let's consider Frontier Airlines, a large discount airliner in the United States. Frontier has high market commonality, but low resource similarity with Amtrak. Many of the same customers could be targeted, but the resources are completely different. Frontier has low market commonality and low resource similarity with Eurotrain. It's a different set of customers in Europe and a completely different set of resources. Frontier has low market commonality but high resource similarity with Ryanair. Ryanair is a European discount airliner. They're not targeting the same customers because they're in different locations, even though the resources are very similar between the two airlines. And finally, Frontier has high market commonality and high resource similarity with Spirit Airlines. Among all of these different examples, Frontier is going to have much higher rivalry with Spirit Airlines than with any of the other examples because of this high market commonality and high resource similarity. For your company, I want you to identify two competitors and decide where they fit on this diagram. Do they have high market commonality? Do they have high resource similarity? Between the two companies that you identified, which is the bigger competitive threat? Which is the most similar rival? Understanding your competitor's market commonality and resource similarity helps you to understand what they are likely to be able to do and how you might be able to respond to them if you are engaging in a rivalry. I hope you like this video and find it to be helpful. Have a wonderful day. Take care.